Wisdom Sutra, we really offer the merit to great benefactor and founder of the doctrine, the original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. To the countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that permeate the myriad worlds. To the eternal three jewels in the 10 directions, and to all teachers of the true Dharma who transmitted the flame, that we may repay their compassionate blessings. We further offer this merit to all the Dharma protecting devas, to the Dharma protecting saints, to the spirit of this place, to the temple protecting spirits. While we pray for his flourishing of the true Dharma, peace in the land, harmony among nations, tranquility with the Sangha, wisdom and prosperity for countless supporters, continual turning of the two wheels. May we with all beings realize the Buddha way. Harold, Abby, June Lockhart, Mark Ernest, Bob Pickett, Susan Stenberg, James, Yvonne, Mike Leonhardt, Michael Lucky Smith, Turid Vault, Richard Lawson, Clifton Gilbert Phillips, Rendell Schultz, Jane Goodall, Lilra Gewant, Jackie, Richard Miller, Rosalind Nostad, Claire Beekman, Anthony, Bryson Higashi, Stacy Garman, Norbert Bybee, Matto Mark, Maya, Curry, and to all those who have died in natural and human-made disasters, including acts of terrorism, violence, political persecution, and war, and especially to those killed in the Manchester Synagogue attack, those killed in the Grand Blanc Township Church attack. May they be serving through the transition we call death. We also dedicate this Mary to Lorraine Booth, Rachel Anderson, Sol, Mary B., Cindy, Daniel, Amalia, Coxie, Traeger, Margarita O'Brien, Latinx immigrants, mothers. May the heart of compassion illuminate their lives. We pray that all beings may prosper and all misfortunes cease. Zazen. Our kids may access the Jesus levels.
long-standing tradition here at Buddha Eye of saying our names, but I wanted to say a couple things about that before we do it. I know for some people it's challenging to say your name into a group, especially if you're new, but the purpose of it is first to learn each other's names a little bit. You won't remember everyone's name, but one or two people maybe. If there's somebody who you've seen, you're like, oh, I wonder who that person is. Try to remember their name as you're saying it, and then maybe afterwards, when we're having coffee time, you could go. And it's easier, it's much more polite and easier to say, hey, Myo on, rather than hey, you. So that's practical purpose. Also, many of us use a Dharma name here, which we have to get used to a little bit. So it's nice to hear people saying their names, saying their Dharma names. But then underneath that, when we say our names and then we're all saying them back, there's a kind of weaving that happens, a kind of weaving together of the assembly, or we might say a revealing of the weaving that is there at the basis of the assembly. So that's another reason that we do it, and it's kind of a spiritual practice of recognizing that connection. So with that said, I'm the Hojo.
Hojo-san.
Josiah.
Josiah.
Gyosei.
Gyosei.
Lauren.
Lauren.
Moxie.
Moxie.
Jikie.
Jikie.
Sokai.
Sokai.
Stephen.
Stephen.
Toshin.
Toshin.
Marissa.
Marissa.
Ian.
Ian.
Kizan.
Kizan.
Holly.
Holly.
Lewis.
Louis.
Ren.
Ren.
Jiho.
Jiho.
Lauren.
Lauren.
Joshin.
Joshin.
Kogan.
Kogan.
Anu.
Anu.
Susan.
Susan.
Issei.
Kisei.
Kosei.
Kosei.
Jiko.
Jiko.
David.
David.
Esho.
Esho.
Sagan.
Sagan.
Emmanuel.
Emmanuel.
Seo.
Seo.
Chris.
Chris.
Lucas.
Lucas.
Delilah.
Delilah.
Ernest.
Ernest.
Ray.
Ray.
Nancy.
Nancy.
Cezanne.
Cezanne.
Paul.
Paul.
Issei.
Issei.
June.
June.
Christian.
Christian.
Jisho.
Jisho.
Kishin.
Kishin.
Noah.
Noan.
Shinyu.
Shinyu.
Leah.
Leah.
Luke.
Luke.
Emma.
Emma.
Christopher.
Christopher.
Karuna.
Karuna.
Anshin.
Anshin.
Tojun.
Tojun.
Carl.
Carl.
Nick.
Nick.
Hazel.
Hazel.
Gregory.
Gregory.
Natalie.
Natalie.
Renee.
Renee.
Mario.
Mario.
Jokai.
Jokai.
Shuho.
Shuho.
Mandy.
Mandy.
Molly.
Molly. Carrie.
Anshin.
Anshin.
Moriah.
Moriah.
Francis.
Francis.
Horaku.
Horaku.
Kento.
Kento.
Jushin.
Jushin.
Chris.
Chris.
Benjamin.
Benjamin.
Emily.
Emily.
Jackie.
Jackie.
Bill.
Bill.
KG.
KGM.
Good morning.
Morning.
Sometimes it takes a little bit of its own rhythm. Weaving. No problem. Weaving, exactly. Also, please feel free to move a little bit if it's hard to see or to hear. You're starting out in one place, but it's fine. Try to see in between people's heads. If you're, looks like a couple of people are on the ground. We have some chairs open here too. I think there's some chairs behind the curtain too. So today I want to continue talking about the Diamond Sutra, which I had said in the late summer, early fall, I'll be revisiting again and again over these several months. And the Diamond Sutra is really one of the central sutras of the Mahayana tradition, which this temple is part of. And it's part of a collection of sutras called the Prajnaparamita Sutras, or the Sutras of Perfect Wisdom, or the Sutras of Wisdom that is the crossing over. That word perfection has a couple different ways to translate or meanings. And it is, again, a wisdom teaching, which is usually identified with the Zen schools quite a bit, mistakenly. people think that the Zen schools are wisdom schools, but that's not actually the case. The Zen schools are wisdom schools, but they're also compassion schools. And if you don't have a balance between wisdom and compassion, you don't have either. There's no such thing as having a lot of wisdom but no compassion. That's called not having wisdom. And if you have a lot of compassion and you don't have wisdom, that's not called compassion. So really these two rely on each other, and I'm always fond of reminding people of the iconographical presentation of that here on our altar, where the Buddha Shakyamuni sits in the middle, and flanked on the right by Avalokitesvara, who's the Bodhisattva of compassion in this form here with 1,000 hands, all responding compassionately to the world, and on the left by the mother of the Buddha's Prajnaparamita, who's the embodiment of wisdom. So all the time, whether it's ritual activity or meditation or study, we should always be paying attention to those two wings of enlightenment. Some of the earliest teachings about Buddhism referred to the bird as a kind of symbol of the practitioner, or a symbol of the truth. And one of the ways that symbol is used is that the bird needs two wings to be able to fly. It's much better than like a bicycle image or something. You know, you could think like, well, you could get by with a unicycle, right? But you don't get by with one wing if you're a bird. You can't fly without having both of them. You know, in a way, it is just one wing. Right? So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to study. And so, just in a kind of review of the first few chapters of the Diamond Sutra is very short. You can read in about a half hour or so. There are many translations in English. There's some of them up on the website. Links to them if you'd like to read it. But each of the chapters, there's 32 chapters, and each are relatively short. So I've talked about the first three, and I'm going to go into the fourth today. But in way of review of the first three, in the first chapter we have this very simple explanation of the Buddha's life. Actually, the Buddha's living. The paragraph is just talking about what's the Buddha's everyday life. So he's gone for his begging rounds in the morning with the community, returned to where the renunciate assembly is staying just outside of the city, and they all wash their bowls, put their bowls away, folded their robe, and the Buddha sits down very simply on the seat, which is his seat. And then that would be a place where he's going to give a teaching. So it's this very simple kind of picture. And in that assembly, there's one monk that comes forward, and his name is Subhuti. And Subhuti is one of the closest disciples of the Buddha. And Subhuti's known, this is an important point, Subhuti's known for being the foremost in kindness. And the foremost in dwelling in peace. So, who asked the question is just as important as the question. And he comes forward and he asks the Buddha this question. He says, for one who has given rise to the mind of awakening, in what way should we abide, and how should we subdue our hearts? He says, for those who have given rise to the mind of awakening, how should we abide, and how should we control our hearts? Here he asks, for those who have given rise to the mind of awakening. That's very important. That those people are known as bodhisattvas. Sattva means being, bodhi means awakening. A being of awakening, a being who has said, I want to awaken, and then is living out the path of awakening, living out the path of the Buddha. He said, if that's how we are, that's how a person is, then what do we do about this unruly heart and mind? And where should we live? Where should we put ourselves? Not just in a kind of material way, where should we live, but where do we take up our residence? What do we establish as being the most important? Where's the footing for this life? And so it's a big question. He's really asking, what is the unfabricated way? What is the way of living which is not all caught up in this kind of narrow bargaining which we so easily put our life into? Another way to think of what is the unfabricated way is to ask, what is the unobjectified way? We objectify things so easily, so quickly. It's very natural, right? You're a subject in your life. And as a subject, you're running into objects. And then you have to deal with them. Right? What a miserable way to live. Dealing with things. Don't you want to live with things? You know? That's really more of the point. That living together is what life is about, not dealing with objects. So Subhuti, he's saying, look, my heart is always being pulled this way and that way and this way and that way. What am I supposed to do about that? Where am I supposed to live? In what way? Now, I was emphasizing in the earlier talks that this takes a great effort. We should come to practice realizing that it's not going to be easy. It's not something that we can just expect will happen without bringing ourselves together to the path. But the issue is, we oftentimes think great effort is like just making ourselves stronger. If I work really hard, I will make myself stronger, and make myself stronger, I'll be able to deal with these things more effectively. So we don't really abide in this unfabricated way or this unobjectified way. We simply make ourselves stronger at dealing with things. And that's a very, very common way to come to meditation practice, for example. Where if I could just pull myself together, build a little bit more spiritual mojo of whatever sort, I will be able to strike down the problems of my life. Primarily the problems of my heart and mind, which are unruly and problematic. So I'm not making fun of that because you should feel bad for doing that. I'm making fun of it because you should recognize that's what you do. I do it too. All right, that's the reason for the joke. Right? Is not a kind of judgment. It's just to recognize, that's a kind of way that we come to it. And this sutra is trying to tell us there's another way. Right? There's another possibility. And the great effort of that is not just to get our spiritual muscles stronger and stronger and stronger so that we can deal with things effectively. It's actually to switch over to a different way, right? To abiding in a different way, to subduing in a different way. And so I would say that a great effort, another way we can think about it is it's the effort of great. Right? We say great effort, or we could say the effort of great. Great in this case means that all things are involved. They're all alive. I'm not going to cut part of it off and try to just deal with it. Right? So then, in the third chapter, the Buddha answers. And he first talks about subduing. How should we subdue the heart? And I talked a lot about how that's such a tricky word. I don't like the word subdue. But very clearly that's what the sutra says. I love this about having text to work with because, of course I can fantasize a whole beautiful way that everything is. And it will correspond with my opinion perfectly. I'm always so amazed. If I go back and read an article that I wrote or something, I'm like, man, this guy really I disagree with him totally. So this is another reason to have teachers, to have sutras, to have a tradition that we get challenged by this. And I'm very challenged by this word subdue. But what the Buddha teaches him is not a technique or a mechanism or a way to make themselves stronger to be able to overcome the mind in an objectified way. That's not what the Buddha does. The Buddha talks about this chapter is referred to as something like the true principle of the Mahayana. So he points at this principle. He's saying, you're going at it wrong, Subhuti, if you just think you're going to be able to club yourself into being good. That there's something else here. In fact, that term, like the true principle, that word for principle here, the derivation of the character is kind of a picture of the altar inside of a house. So I love that. He's saying, I'm going to give you this teaching, which is like, what should you put on the altar of your being in this house right here? If you really want to work with your mind, don't think about being a subject that's going to control the object of your mind. You actually have to put something else right there in the center of your intention. Or you have to see that there already is something there in the center of your intention. And so it's not a technique, it's not a mechanism. He says, Subhuti, what you need to do is you need to imagine every possible kind of being that has ever been, ever is, or ever could be. And there's a long list there. Right? All manner of beings. You should first bring all of those beings to mind. And then you should make a vow that every single one of those beings will be liberated. That you will bring them to liberation, or that you will go to liberation with them. So think about that. What kind of medicine is that? As opposed to, how do I get this mind under control? How do I get this heart under control? Rather than saying, well, you do this, breathe this way, consider this thing, turn your mind like this, bend your body like that, and then you'll be able to control your mind. It says, first, this is most important. You get your inspiration correct. It's not about you cut off from all other beings. Whatever it is that you call you, that you want to subdue, involves all beings. Put that right at the center. And now see what's possible with your heart. He goes on to say that if giving rise to this intention that all beings will be saved, in actuality, no being at all is saved. This is kind of the crack of the whip of the Prajnaparamita. So you have to consider every single possible being, total compassion. But actually, there's no one there. And there's no one here for you to grab onto. That's the wisdom. I think of this as the invitation to totally engaged relinquishment. Usually we think of relinquishment as the opportunity to get away from things, right? If I were to let go, they would go away. But this is just the opposite of that. It's saying if I let go, now I actually have to meet it. I actually have to see that I am totally engaged. And what I've been doing up until now is probably some manner of strong arm. Okay? And when I let go, okay, I can see that there isn't really some separate view or some separate situation, that it's all connected. And he tells Subhuti that a bodhisattva should not cultivate or hold on to the notion of a self or selves. Okay, so that's what we've talked about so far. And in the 4th chapter, then the Buddha talks about this question of abiding. Where should we live? And in this chapter 4, which I'll just read to you and then we can talk about it a little bit. I tried to print this book out with a little bit bigger print, it didn't work. So he says further, Subhuti, in the practice of charity, bodhisattvas should abide in nothing whatsoever. Okay, so he's speaking to the abiding part of the question. In the practice of charity or generosity, bodhisattvas should abide in nothing whatsoever. That is, to practice generosity without attachment to form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. Subhuti, bodhisattvas should practice generosity this way without attachment to anything, without abiding in anything. Why? If bodhisattvas practice generosity without abiding, their merits are immeasurable. Subhuti, what do you think? Is the space in the eastern direction measurable? No, world-honored one, it is immeasurable. Subhuti, is any of the space above or below in the 4 cardinal directions or in the 4 intermediate directions measurable? They are immeasurable, world-honored one. Subhuti, the merits attained by bodhisattvas who practice generosity without attachment are also immeasurable. Like space, Subhuti, bodhisattvas should abide in this teaching. So at the end he says they should abide in this teaching. But what's the teaching? The teaching is that we should practice without affixing to anything at all, without abiding in anything. Not a sight, a sound, a smell, a taste, a touch, or a thought, or a feeling, or any phenomena in any way. If we make our home in any particular phenomena, then the practice becomes a leverage. It becomes not this practice of liberation. He didn't say it's easy, right? But he's saying that's the instruction. The title of this chapter is something like Wondrous Practice of No Abiding. Now to break it down a little bit, he's using the term to practice generosity, or sometimes you could say to give a gift, which is the first of the paramitas, the first of the teachings on how to live as a bodhisattva, that we should always be generous. We should make offerings, not only offerings to the Buddha or to the temple, but to each other. In every situation, we have the possibility to be generous, whether that's a generous of material things or generosity of spirit, generosity of heart. We should always be practicing that generosity. Okay? So this is the foundation of Buddhism. Much before you focus on meditation, focus on generosity. If you focus on generosity and then come to meditation practice, your meditation will progress very quickly. But if you don't practice generosity, then meditation might just make you narrower and narrower. So this is kind of like the, what do you call it, price of admission. So that's the practice. But the practice is wondrous, because the practice is not a place for you to abide. In this case, wondrous means ungraspable. Wondrous means that you can't get a hold of it. It's not a practice that you could just say, this is what the mechanism is. If you're generous and you give this amount of money to the poor people and you do this, and when you see people you say hi, and you always smile and you do this, then this will be the effect. It's not that kind of a thing, right? That actually the practice of generosity, the wondrous practice of generosity, is one in which we release the objectification that we're doing on the world. We no longer think of the recipient of the generosity as being the kind of target of my activity. That the way that I'm generous has as much to do with me, it's as much for my benefit as for their benefit. When you're kind, that's the case, right? It's nice to be kind to people. It's good for them, but it's even better for you. You're cultivating a different way of being, a different way, not just a nice world. You're cultivating a different way of being in the world, a world in which you're not seeing that other being as a kind of a target. Now that's a practice, it's not a place. It's a practice, not a place. You don't just go there and say, okay, yeah, now I'm in the place of practicing generosity. There is no place of practicing generosity. Every place is the place of practicing generosity. At least that's what our practice is to make every place the place of practicing generosity. It's said that the Buddha Shakyamuni, before attaining final awakening, lived countless billions and billions of lives. That there is not a place on our world that the Buddha did not lay their life down for others. And that's why the Buddha is the Buddha, because that's what the continual lives of the Buddha emerge as. So our practice should be the same. We don't try to abide somewhere. See how that question is, where should we abide? It's like, where could I take shelter? And now I know I'm in the right place because the Buddha told me to be in, 2190 Garfield Street, and that's where I am. Whatever our 2190 Garfield Street is, the place that we've decided is the place to be. If we go there, then we think everything will be okay, and we disconnect, and we'll stop practicing. So one way to understand this is just in a really practical way is practice, practice, practice. To be true practice, it can't be a landing place. Right? It has to be the recognition that all of this immeasurable number of beings are involved. And then he says this interesting thing. Well, it's all interesting. He asks Subhuti this question. He says, so Subhuti, how about the space to the east? Can you measure it? And of course Subhuti says no. He says, how about it to the west? No. How about all the different directions, up, down, intermediate directions, forward, back? Could you measure any of those? He says, no, of course not. How could you measure the space? And he says, that's the merit that emerges from practicing in this way. If you practice without landing, without abiding somewhere, without making your home or your nest in something, like the satisfaction that you're generous, right? Then there's this kind of merit, which is a different kind of merit. It's an immeasurable merit. Now, merit in Buddhism has a long history, or very developed theology, as you'd say, philosophy. And the understanding is that as liberating activity is taken on by any individual being, that their body starts to change. Their body starts to change and to head towards awakening, towards Buddhahood. And so that's why sometimes it's called like a collection of merit. Merit collects. It doesn't just like go into a closet or a storage place. There is this change in what we are as beings as we practice liberation. And that change is referred to as merit. And the merit can be dedicated to different things. It can take us to different places. Right? But he's saying this merit of the practice of non-abiding is an immeasurable merit, which one way we can understand is it's just beyond everything. It's complete and total. Now we can make good things happen, right? And some of our practice is like that. If we have a really squirrely mind,
happily accepted.
but yes, which most of us do, our squirrely mind, you might say, I'm going to sit down and do something about that. You could take up a simple breath technique as you learned in Introduction to Zazen class or other kinds of teachings or that you've learned other places, and you can learn to bring some balance in your mind so it's not so squirrely. And you can measure it. I highly encourage you to do that. Not the measuring necessarily, but the doing of it. I like squirrels, right? But I also like my mind to know how to be present with what is. And so that is a kind of measurable merit. Right? I could see the effect. It's not that that's bad, but what the Buddha is saying don't abide there. And if you don't abide there, there's a merit that goes way beyond just the joy of having a mind that knows how to be calm and receptive. There's something much more profound that's available. And what that is freedom. Kind of a loaded word in our country. But it's really freedom. It's not just I've gotten to a better place, but I come to know liberation. I come to not be enslaved by the conditions of this life, but they become an opportunity for the full expression of my path, of my being. There's a writing, from the oldest writings in Buddhism, where there's a king, and he's talking with this Buddhist teacher, and he wants to know what nirvana is like. He wants to know, what is it like? What is awakening like? And then in this text is the answer of this monk to him. And inside of that, he refers to nirvana as being like space. I'm very fond of this, so many of you have heard it bunches of times. And he says that nirvana or awakening or freedom or liberation is like space in these 10 different ways. He says, just as space is not produced, does not age, does not suffer death, does not pass out of existence, does not come into existence, cannot be forcibly handled, cannot be carried away by thieves, rests on nothing, is the pathway of birds, presents no obstacles, is endless. So also, nirvana is not produced, does not age, does not suffer death, does not pass out of existence, does not come into existence, cannot be forcibly handled, cannot be carried away by thieves, rests on nothing, is the pathway of the noble, presents no obstacles, is endless. This is the immeasurable merit that the Buddha is referring to. I particularly like how he compares this to the path of birds. And I was thinking about this a little bit in relationship to this fourth chapter and his teaching about immeasurable merit. And I was thinking about, you look up and you see the bird fly through the sky. Isn't that great when you see it? Especially if you just kind of look up at just the right time and you'll see. And sometimes maybe you'll see a flock of birds. One time I saw a flock of pelicans. They are bizarre. Most flocks of birds, they all fly kind of together and they're sort of straight, like they're doing this, And sometimes the crows are getting they're like a biker gang, But I looked up, I was working outside in my garden and I looked up out in the sky and there was this big, it must have been 30 of them or so. But they don't just all fly like together. They're going in the same direction, but they kind of like, they're all sort of doing this. So it's like this chaotic mass of birdness that's just kind of heading in a direction. I was very inspired by it. Anyway, sorry, distraction. But anyway, a bird in the sky, there's just something about it that can touch you. There's a freedom in it that is kind of immediately intuitively knowable. Right? Oftentimes birds are also symbols of spirit. So the kind of freedom of spirit that we sense with that bird's movement. So I was thinking all about that and looking at these birds and thinking about how the birds are so free in the sky. Sky is a kind of the character in Chinese also means emptiness. The immeasurability of being. And this bird. And something in my mind flipped. I thought, the bird is not free in the sky. The sky's freedom is the bird. The sky's freedom is the bird. And this is just like our practice. That immeasurable body of merit is not something we get past our limited body to get to. Like there's this big area we can get to, and if we could get there, then we would be free like the bird in the sky. It's actually the freedom of the sky is just there in the life of the bird, or the path of the bird. And that's true for us too. The freedom of our own life, of our own day-to-day living, just like the Buddha, is in that completely open field. This is what the Diamond Sutra is trying to get us to trust a little bit, so that we're willing to live like that. And then we can see that all more clearly. Any questions? Rebuttals? Comments?
Buddha-san, was the Diamond Sutra written in Sanskrit?
So, we don't know. The oldest versions that we have are in Chinese. But for a long time, people assumed that it was originally written in Sanskrit and then would have traveled to China and been translated to Chinese. And the reason they believe that is because there are lots and lots of sutras that happened with. But from a scholarly perspective, as they start to study it more, they can't really untangle it. They can't really find what's going on there. So there are versions of Sanskrit, but the Sanskrit versions of the sutra are a bit older than the Chinese versions. So the versions are always changing a little bit, so we don't really know original. The thing I like about all that scholarship and stuff is that I think it's kind of silly to try to find out what we always want to go farther back. Like, well, the people 100 years before it did it that way, so that's the original way, which means it's the real way. But I know a lot of stuff that people used to do that was not so great. And so it just doesn't seem like a reliable way to measure it. So what I usually recommend to people is to explore lots of different translations of it. One of the big differences between what you'll find in Sanskrit and what you'll find in Chinese is those are almost opposite languages in their temperament. Sanskrit is uber precise. Like English is very precise compared to like a Japanese or Chinese, for example. But Sanskrit is like just a whole other level. Just for those of you who are linguistically inclined, in Sanskrit, every word gets conjugated. According to a whole bunch of factors, not just like tense, right, or gender. It's like I don't read Sanskrit, but just what little bit I studied, I was like, whoa. So that's a Sanskrit. Chinese is like bird, sky, freedom. No, it's more like that. And so it has another kind of really powerful capacity to transmit the Dharma, but it's not through that kind of specificity. This is, I would say, much more poetic and maybe more visual.
Hi. When I work with people who have pain or addiction, or a lot of my patients have psychiatric illness or ADD, when they try to pay attention to things, very fast on the heels of that is a lot of like criticism, and the trying is important, but what's necessary to deal with that kind of swirly mind? Is it humor? Is it generosity? Is it acceptance? Because for some people it doesn't ever change substantially, and for others it may take years.
Yeah. I would say all of those are necessary. Generosity, humor, acceptance. But I would say the big thing is, what Buddhism is teaching here is not that everybody should become the best meditator in the world. That's not the Buddhist teaching. The Buddhist teaching is that there's a path to liberation for all beings, and all beings face the circumstances of this particular life and have to work with the circumstances of this particular life. And that may include a mind in which meditation is possible in some ways and not possible in others. My experience is that usually meditation is possible in some way for most people. And but then what is that? And how do you bring about the kind of generosity of spirit in whoever's teaching them or leading them and doing that, so that they can have a generosity of spirit to be able to come back to that again and again. But there are many other kinds of, within meditation, a lot of kinds of practices, and outside of meditation, a lot of practices too. So I think that generally speaking, some kind of meditation is good for almost everyone. But you have to find kind of the right side to it. And I'd say particularly for people who have a lot of emotions that are very close to the surface, that are difficult, when you take down, pull back a couple curtains, that it's important that people have something to do rather than just being left in the open space of the difficulty. So that's why I like a breathing, instructions on breath awareness, or body awareness, those kinds of things become very helpful. And if you experience that kind of, like, you meditate a bit and you really experience a lot of anxiety or difficult, really go see one of the teachers at the temple or other places, because working with the teacher is a place where that, what is the right thing, gets uncovered. Yeah.
What was this on?
We had one person just about to speak here. Yeah.
Hello. You brought up, you didn't use that term necessarily, but leveraging. And, most of us bring that energy, including myself, to the Diamond Sutra. And then I recall in Red Pine's Diamond Sutra, he said when he first picked it up as a young scholar, he couldn't understand it, so he put it down for like 30 years. But we're on a crash course here.
Yeah.
But I find that interesting, the leveraging, which we do throughout life.
Yeah.
Would you talk a bit?
Sure. That's why I really recommend that people develop a relationship with a teaching as opposed to the teaching being sort of an object of our will to dominate it or be dominated by it. So something like the Diamond Sutra, I remember when I first picked up the Diamond Sutra, it was also probably 30 or 35 years ago. And no idea. What is this? Like gibberish, but if coming back to it again and again and again, there's something there, and then my job is to come to the teaching of the Buddha with the humility to receive what may be revealed, as opposed to understanding it. And that's why chanting the sutra, writing the sutra, just receiving it again and again is the way in which we come to a better understanding of it. But almost always we have that kind of mind that wants to crack it open in some way or think that we've got just the right key or whatever it is. But the sutra is very generous in that sense. It will let us go down the road and then we get someplace very silted and then it gets taken away. There's a famous koan about the Diamond Scholar Sutra, the Diamond Sutra scholar who was very famous for being this top teacher of the Diamond Sutra, and he traveled all over the place to teach the Diamond Sutra, these massive commentaries, and he would travel from place to place with all of his commentaries on his back. And he stops by on his way to go to this famous monastery to teach. He stops by a tea house to have a little refreshment, like going by the coffee shop. And the old woman there who's serving the tea comes with a treat and with a tea and says, "I'll give this to you if you can tell me with what mind you will eat it." Because there's a part of the Diamond Sutra that says the past mind and the present mind and future mind are all ungraspable, and he can't answer, and so she doesn't give it to him. And then he burns all his commentaries, and then he enters into practice. He doesn't abide in all of those words. He's abiding in the words, and she just pulled out the rug. So if you come to the temple and you see my little hut on fire, you don't know what happened. Who was it back here? Who was about to ask? Yes.
So maybe this is a rebuttal, okay? So in the image of the bird in the sky, I mean, at some level, again, it feels like we're being offered up this idea of freedom as being all this open space, and I guess I'm also thinking and wondering if the Diamond Sutra is also this invitation to look at the thickness and the messiness and the density of our lives, what we're dealing with before we showed up here, what we're going to walk into when we leave. It's also the sky available to be free in an instant if we show up.
Yep. So the sky is not in opposition to the earth. So when the image of the bird in the sky is not, this is why it's important that we don't just see the bird as being like, there's nothing there so the bird can be free. It's actually the entirety of the sky, which is the bird's freedom. And that's the same for us, the entirety of our lives. Actually, we can move through them just like we move through the sky. What we're not bargaining for in that image is that the moving through them includes sorrow, includes joy, includes compromise, includes getting into the nitty-gritty.
And it seems like those, when we bring that into the picture, those ideas that sorrow and challenge and suffering are also a quality of freedom.
Exactly.
It's like, how can that be? Is that true? And what does it feel like to live in that world?
So one of the things that we have to do if we're to live our life with that freedom is no matter what it is that we're doing in our living, whatever is emerging, that we don't think of that the obstacle as an obstacle to freedom. So sorrow, for example, is not an obstacle to freedom. It's an invitation. Even injustice and oppression.
If we meet it, it opens up the world. If we actually meet it as it unfolds, it opens something up.
Exactly. Or I would say it's not that it opens it up, but the transparency of it is immediate. The freedom of it is immediate. So if you talk with there's a poet whose name's not coming to me right now. There's a black poet from in the Northeast, and he had this line. He said, "A man is either free or he is not. There is no apprenticeship to freedom." So, and he was involved in civil rights work, etc. Later on, he got criticized for what some people saw as anti-Semitic things. So if you go look him up, you'll see a rich history of.
I think it's Ta-Nehisi Coates.
No. It's much older. Than that. No. Both the people I appreciate, but it's, neither of them. Anyway, he's converted to Islam and he has a Islamic name as well. Anyway, if you go look him up and you'll see all that. That's why I say it, because people say, "Oh wait a minute, you quoted this person," blah blah blah. So, but the point being there is that even engaged in fights against oppression, as soon as the oppression becomes an idea of the object which we must destroy, then the freedom is lost. Where the real power comes from seeing that there is a freedom in our response, and that response is whole itself. It's not just contingent upon the results of the effort in the measurable way that I could kind of measure the results. So as we go on in the sutra, one of the things that may be a good thing to pay attention to is there's many times where the Buddha will start talking about all of the space of the cosmos being filled with jewels. Jewels. Yeah, he will say something like this over and over again. He will say, "Subhuti, what do you think? If a person was to fill the cosmos," this is a kind of loose translation, if a person was to fill the cosmos with jewels and to make that as an offering, how great would the merit be?" And Subhuti says the merit would be great. And then the Buddha will say something like, if someone were to memorize even one line of this sutra and to recite it to another, the merit would be greater. Right? So the reason I'm bringing up is the image of filling everything up. So when we talk about the sky, we talk about emptiness, that's like one feeling or image. But there's this other image of everything being filled with the jewels. But even in that, then the Buddha says, that as an offering is still limited if you're holding on to the idea of the jewels that you go beyond. So you can play with the images there.
If you have time for one more.
Sure.
I think one of the lines that has often puzzled me, and maybe others as well, is that it's always the part about saving all beings, but not a single being is saved. And I think part of that is that we will have an idea of what it is to be saved.
Yep.
And so that's the crux of the issue. And so it's like we think that we know what this person really needs to be saved, or what this being, whatever this being is, whether it's a slug or a. And so I think that, but that's that's also, I feel like it also kind of leaves us nowhere in a way.
So when we know what the result should be for
Right,
their
that-
liberation,
yeah.
that is abiding in a sight or a sound or a smell or a taste or a touch, or an object of mind is the kind of technical term, a dharma, some idea. And so the Buddha is saying, don't abide there. And then your question is, but then if we don't abide in any of those places, then what do we do? How do we know what to do? That's the crack of the whip of the Mahayana. Right? So what we want is we want the mechanism.
Right.
If you search your heart, you will discover that you deeply want a mechanism to be able to say, if I do this, then I will know what it is that I'm supposed to do. But what this is asking us to do is to come to the threshold of not knowing what to do, and then to have the courage to do what we believe to be best. Because if anyone gives us the assurance that what we're doing is the right thing to do, then we cannot do it through the freedom of our being. We do it only through the mechanism of how it is we think we're going to fulfill.
And also getting
whatever.
something in return, which is also an aspect of the transactional.
Yeah, getting something in return,
Yeah.
which may even be just like I get to give up myself. That might be what we get. So coming all the way to that threshold and then having to make a step without the assurances of your rightness. That's the kind of freedom we're talking about, and that's deeply challenging to the way that our heart is holding on to things, and why it's so unruly. But so in that part of the sutra, what we don't want to do is to try to come up with the definitive answer. We want that part of the sutra to lead us right to the edge. And then it's going to say, okay, what are you going to do? That's where a practice is possible that isn't practiced with all the undergirding. And by the way, I would say that's true throughout. Whether that's a person who's practicing a breathing exercise to be able to calm your mind down a little bit, or you're practicing objectless awareness, or you're in some kind of Sambhogakaya realm of a celestial luminous Buddha, in all of those places, that's the thing that makes it a practice of liberation, as opposed to a mechanism. So it's not that that's only for advanced practitioners, and that's why the Buddha puts it there as he says, put this on the altar. If you're going to do this liberation practice, that's what's got to be on the altar, and then that informs any type of practice that we do. Sounds easy, huh? Yes.
Sangha, Saranam.
announcements?
I have an announcement. My name is Shuho. Mandy and I welcomed you to the temple today. So if you have a question about the temple or the service, come find one of us after we break. Also, if maybe your question is, who does what around here? There are some new poster boards in the front room. There's one for the board of directors. There's one for the teachers. There's one for some of us who have leadership positions in the Sangha. That might be the answer to your question right there. So go ahead and take a look at those as well. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention we will be having the holiday craft sale in December on 2 Sundays, the 21st and 28th. There'll be an announcement in the bulletin coming out next week with lots of details, so take a look at that. And if you're crafty or not, please, we appreciate all donations, and there's more detail in the bulletin, so check that out.
I have an announcement. The Kanzeon Committee exists to practice compassion and hopefully with some wisdom behind it. And so we offer our listening ears if you're feeling any kind of need to express or find solutions to things. There's 4 members of our committee. If you could raise your hand right now. We're available during coffee time. Also, you can make an appointment with us, and we have an email that you could write to us too if that's the easiest way for you to express. Also, just to mention quickly, we have an active care team that carries out some of our activities and engagement with each other in the Sangha. So if that's interesting to you, you want to be of service in a very practical way, we have a brochure out in front that you can look at and find out more. Thank you.
I have an announcement. I'm the current leader of recording and streaming for Sunday assemblies. If you're at all interested in the process of transmitting the Dharma online to people who aren't here or to people who want to listen to talks later, please come talk to me after assembly. I'd love to train some people on how to do this. Thank you.
I have a tiny announcement. There's a new committee. It's called the Fundraising Committee. And our task that we've taken on is to have a little fun around here. So, social fun, some sort of informal time when you can wear your tie-dye, for instance. It would be cool. And we're going to start with some movie nights. So keep a lookout in the bulletin, and we'll be announcing when those are going to happen. And there'll be some other social events. And if you have any interest in it, the 3 of us, raise your hand. Okay, talk to those folks and share your enthusiasm. We just want to have a good time.
We just want to